Okay, so a quick opening statement here. You know, kind of that time of year, you know, obviously we got through the holidays and I was really excited thinking that I dodged the bullet and we weren't going to have anybody that we were going to have to replace on our coaching staff. And I think one of the hallmarks of a really good program is continuity within a coaching staff, and that's something that's hard to maintain at this level. When you hire good people, they have opportunities to move forward, and you know, that was certainly the case in Gerald's situation. I think it's fairly rare that a young man can go from being at the Big Sky level to being in the Pac-12 level a year later, but I think it speaks to kind of the network that Gerald had, and also, you know, the type of energy that he brings and the level of expertise that he had at his position. And so very happy for Gerald and his family and appreciate the time that they had here at Montana State, and I think helping us to lay a foundation, specifically in the back end. And so that got to our first hire of the off season, which was Mark Orphey. And we interviewed 3 candidates for the defensive back job. Mark was a guy that just kind of kept coming to the forefront. And you know, immediately upon him expressing interest, I got calls from 3 people that I respect. One is Gabe Franklin, who was actually my secondary coach when I was at UTEP for that short stint, and is a former Boise State player and is currently the secondary coach here. I think he coaches corners at Boise State right now. And Gabe had gotten to know Mark when Mark was a player through the recruiting process when he was in Houston, ended up at Texas Southern, and then kind of was around him a little bit when he was helping out as the corners coach at Texas Southern. And then obviously Tavares Robinson, who's now the defense, or actually is defensive coordinator now at University of South Carolina. He was the secondary coach at Florida the year I was there. And he spoke very highly of Mark and obviously worked closely with Mark and put a lot of trust in him because his role had been expanded in a coordinator role, and he had to lean on Mark a lot for kind of day-to-day activities within that room, managing the room, running individual, those types of things. And then obviously Coach Muschamp's recommendation. And so those 3 guys were glowing in terms of their recommendation, in terms of his professionalism and how he would be as a fit. And that was my biggest concern, quite honestly, was not so much what guys were going to bring to the table in terms of the X and O part, but how were they going to fit into that defensive staff room and collectively into our staff room. I think that's a very underrated part of this, but at the end of the day, those tight quarters, and we have to be around each other a lot, and we have to feel like that's a person that we want to go to work with. And so when Mark came on campus, I thought he was very poised, very professional. I just thought portrayed kind of the quiet confidence that is a hallmark of a good secondary. And so I think the level of experience that he brings to us from his time in South Carolina, his familiarity with FCS football, having played at that level, and just his demeanor was the right fit for us. And I think you'll get an opportunity to talk to Mark a little bit later, but you know, very, very pleased that he's here and excited to see how he puts his spin on that back end. I mean, it's you know, the foundation's been laid a little bit, and now we've got to go and go get the next group ready to roll. And so, again, excited about Mark and be happy to take any questions on him.
How important is, you mentioned the chemistry with the staff, but also just personality and with fitting into the defensive backs room, how important is that?
Yeah, well, I think those are the 2 pieces when you talk about fit. One is obviously the chemistry within the staff room, but also that connectivity to the athletes, and I think that's something you always got to be aware of. That's a unique group. Oftentimes they're out on islands and they've got to have that confidence that I spoke of a moment ago, and I think he's going to fit in very well. You know, Gerald was a high energy, kind of almost over the top in terms of, you know, the shirt off before the Montana game and some of those things, you know, and I think the kids responded to that. But everybody's got their own style. And I think that Mark has, he's got kind of that, he's got an edge to him, but I think it'll come across in a different way. I'm excited to see how he interacts as a teacher with these guys. That's a really important part of this, and that was one of the reasons why it was important to go through the interview process and see them get in front of our staff. I mean, I think that's a daunting deal. It wasn't just he and I sitting down having a conversation. You know, we brought him in front of our entire staff because we wanted to see how he was going to interact in a teaching setting, and he performed very well. And I think he's already started to connect with a lot of the secondary guys. I know they're certainly eager to get to know him, and they've been in and out of the office a bunch.
I mean, he seems aware of the shoes that he's filling, but how big is the challenge maybe for him with this being his first time as a full-time?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, Gerald only had one opportunity, that was at Indiana State. And so, you know, I think in a lot of respects, he's been more prepared than Gerald was to step into this role because he spent more time observing and not just a scheme that I like, that I'm familiar with, and what Coach Muschamp and Coach Robinson do at South Carolina. But that was just for a year. He was with John Hoke, who's a very well-respected secondary guy, a longtime NFL coach, and they had a successful stint on defense when he was at Texas Southern, were SWAC champions, and he was a 3-time all-conference player. And so he actually brings, from a coaching standpoint, Gerald went on his NFL journey. That's very different than coaching. And I think that, in a lot of ways, Mark has had more hands-on experience on the coaching side of it than Gerald did. And so now it comes down to personality, and I think that's probably what you're alluding to more, is just that outgoing, gregarious nature that Gerald had. But I think that I know that Mark is a very confident young man, and is going to put his own spin on this.
The connection with Will Muschamp, how much did that play into his hiring?
I think it was significant because of the amount of respect that I have for Coach Muschamp, and I know that he knows ball, and I know that he knows ball coaches, and he gave Mark a very, very high recommendation, and that was definitely a piece. But that was why we also interviewed him in person. We interviewed a couple other candidates as well, and so I think that was important for me, was not to just take somebody's word for it. And sometimes I have firsthand knowledge of guys that I'm very comfortable with, and we're going to move quickly, and other times I want to make sure that we get the right fit for us, and this was one of those cases.
I guess how much did it help too? Because he said he had connections to Kane and Ty and a bunch of different guys on staff as well. How much did that help him, I guess, fit into the room as well?
Well, I think that one of the things that I did was I kind of tried to get those guys to reach out to him to find out as much as they could. Hey, here's a couple of names. I want you to make some calls. Just have a conversation. Don't make it necessarily about football. Talk about, hey, have you ever been to Bozeman, Montana, whatever it might be. And I think you can really get a feel for people, and I think that's what this is. This is a people business, and that was kind of the purpose of getting Kane and Ty involved, was to have them, kind of vet Mark and some of the other candidates more from on a personal level, and whether we felt like those were guys that were going to be able to be happy, successful, and productive at Montana State and within our community.
He said he's never spent much time in the West, so was that a tough sell just on a personal level?
I think he was excited about the opportunity. The tough sell might be his girlfriend right now, who lived in Tampa, went to school in Florida, and is now at South Carolina. So this might be a little different for her. But like I told him, I said this whole thing is an adventure. I mean, that's why you get into coaching. You don't say, it's a very rare individual that's going to, Kane is the anomaly here, who played here, coached here, and has been here his whole career. That does not happen in this business. And I, kind of told him my story about, hey, I've been from Gainesville, Florida to Seattle, Washington, and back. It's, and I wouldn't really trade any of those experiences for myself or my family. And so I think that's something that you just kind of take into it. I think he's excited about being on the West Coast and excited about getting a chance to recruit LA. And, we could throw him into Houston, and that'd be the easy thing to do, and we'll rely on some of his connections down there. But I just think it's about where the blueprint that we want to recruit and his ability to connect. One of the things that came across repeatedly in the interview process with him was the word relationships, and he kept circling back to relationships, whether it be with his family, his players, the coaching staff, and it was very genuine, and I felt like that was something that was going to be an asset for him in recruiting, and I think he'll do very well. Moving along. Down at Salt Lake City for the Big Sky Coaches winter meetings, and about 4:30 on Friday I got a call, and was informed that there was a coach out there that was interested in Courtney's services, and so I came pretty quickly. And that was probably one that came a little bit out of left field, but I know that we're good on the North Dakota State stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to ask that question before I got in here. I didn't want to compromise Coach Kleiman's position at all. But anyway, I was aware that Coach Messingham had a long-standing relationship with Coach Kleiman and had referenced him a bunch. We had some professional development stuff scheduled to go out to NDSU, and Chris had mentioned that they had a coach leave, and he was interested in hiring Courtney, and it had 1 and 2 for a long time. But as I know now, sitting in this chair, it's a lot different. Sometimes it's about the fit, it's about the timing and some of those things, and so the timing was right, and it gave Courtney an opportunity to kind of reconnect with a longtime friend and colleague of his, and go to a program that's obviously a very, very strong program. Financially, it was a better decision for he and his family, and getting back to the Midwest, and so some of those things just all came together for him. And so for me, it was about kind of examining where we were at. I had a long drive back from Salt Lake to think about it, and slept on it, and then called some people that I trust, and kind of knew what my gut was telling me, but I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. And called Brian, and we had a meeting on Sunday afternoon. felt very strongly that that was the direction I wanted to go, and I felt like he was the right guy at the right time. He's a very smart football coach, and there's probably nobody that I've worked with in 23 plus years that studies the game any more in depth than he does. You'll go in there at lunch and he'll be watching these cool clinic tapes from like 1986 or something. You're like, scratchy video, and he's just he's a football junkie and always has been, and has a lot of knowledge. I think you can get kind of pigeonholed sometimes and say, oh, he's an O-line guy. Brian can coach every position on the field, and he's had to. He's been a very successful high school coach at 2 extremely high levels in Florida, at both Lake Gibson and Kathleen high schools, and had to wear a lot of hats as a high school coach. And you come to small college football and you're doing all this stuff, but he also has that strong run game background from when he was GA when I was there at Utah State, and he's just a student of the game. And I think if you talk to people that really understand football, I know stays in touch with Jim McElwain more than just about anybody I know. And that they're always talking about scheme, they're always talking about philosophy. When I would call him to check on his family, and we'd always circle back to something football related. And you look at what he was able to do with really a smaller amount of resources and probably lesser athletes than the Carroll colleges of the world in terms of some of the numbers he put up on offense. And I think also he understands philosophically what I want to do, and I think he's smart enough to be able to figure it out. And on top of that, I talked about continuity at the top. I think that's a huge part of us moving forward. And so with Brian being able to slide into that role, I think that allows us to gain traction. One of the things that did play into this decision was I hired a quarterback coach not too long ago. And generally speaking, when you hire a coordinator, they're going to want to have that guy in their room. And I feel like that without question, Denarius is the right guy for our situation. And I wasn't sure that was going to go out and find a bunch of guys who were going to say, sure, go ahead. You let that guy coach the quarterbacks and I'll do tight ends. And the way we were set up right now for us to move forward quickly, for us to maintain that level of synergy that I want us to have, somebody that understands our personnel, our strengths, our weaknesses, what we've spent the last 4 months talking about improving. I didn't want to rush to judgment and throw all that stuff together in a month before spring ball. And so all of those things came together, and it was easy for me to decide that Brian was the right guy at the right time. And so what we'll do is we'll kind of have him be a walk-around guy this spring. He'll be able to jump in and help out really in a lot of positions that will help him to sink into the pass game a little bit more. I think you'll see Denarius and Matt Miller have strong influences in our pass game. And you'll see, BJ moved back to tight end, so he'll have tight ends. So it's really kind of back to the future, so to speak. I mean, the tight ends, when we talked to the team the other night, they were like, can BJ come back and be a And so I was like, yeah, that's fine. And so that'll be kind of seamless there, and then we'll add an offensive line coach, and I think that's that's one of those where I don't really have to go do a committee. I know exactly who I want to hire, and we've got to go through the process the correct way, and vet the candidates. But I think it'll be something that we'll be able to get done fairly quickly, and again, somebody that'll fit very well into our current staff and allow us to move forward in a positive direction, bring value not just between the white lines, but in recruiting as well.
Do you expect there to be a lot of carryover from what you guys did offensively last year? Will you keep some of it the same?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that we had a lot of discussions about, as we evolved, there were some things that you're like, I don't like that anymore, based on who is behind the center and some of those things. But I think that in order for that, my whole message was we've got to streamline and simplify this. When we allow our guys to play fast and not have to think, we were pretty good. And so that was the whole message from me, regardless of who's calling the plays, is let's keep this simple and let our guys go play fast. I feel like we've got, a good veteran core returning on the offensive line, and I feel like we had one of the better offensive lines in the conference at the end of the year. And again, kind of pointing back to Brian, we lose 4 starters, this is the product that we got. I think he did a pretty good job. And so I thought, I feel like we returned that core. We obviously returned, some experience behind center with both Chris and Tyler. We returned a lot of experience at wide receiver. I think we've got some playmakers that, whether they're true freshmen or transfers, that'll be in the mix that can add some juice to our offense. And so the question mark is, okay, who's going to replace the productivity that we had in the backfield with Chad and Gunner? But I think Nick is poised to do that. We've got some other talented young guys that I'm sure would be happy to have the ball in their hand. And so I feel like we've got a chance to really improve dramatically on the offensive side of the ball. And if we can make incremental improvements on the defensive side, it'll be a step in the right direction for us. The reality of it is that we have to improve because, not just because we were a 4-7 outfit, but because our schedule moving forward from this point on is dramatically different than what it has been around here in the past. And so, again, I don't know how they rank schedules, but I can't see a lot of people having more difficult non-conference schedules than we're going to have in playing the Missouri Valley Conference champ, the runner-up in the Pac-12 North, and a top 25 team for most of the year in Kennesaw State. And so those are the teams that we're playing out of conference, and then we have the luck of the draw. We play Eastern Washington on the road, North Dakota on the road, we host Weber State, and we have Montana. And so in terms of the balance of power in this league, with the exception of Cal Poly, that's the only playoff team in the last 3 years that we're not playing. And so I think that's something that I'm excited about, but I know that's the challenge in front of us, that we've got to make those strides and continue to improve. We've invested heavily on both sides of the line of scrimmage to improve our ability to run the ball and stop the run. And now the step that we've got to take is obviously throwing the football at a more efficient rate, not turning the ball over, and being able to improve our team speed, both in the back end and the secondary, and also being able to create explosives on offense. And so that's the state of the program address. I think it's been very concise, and Donald Trump wants my services. Well, Bill Lamberty, now permission to speak.